All right. So our first review and only review of the day is going to be a spoiler review for Captain America: Brave New World. So if you have not seen Captain America: Brave New World yet, we're going to be diving into the spoilers, the end credit scene there, the main villain of this film. So if you haven't seen it, or you know what I mean, if you're cautious about that, please don't watch this. If you just don't care, you know what I mean, hey, stick around there for this. But so I'm gonna let you guys go ahead, give your thoughts on this Captain America: Brave New World film there, where it has Sam Wilson, played by Anthony Mackie, stepping up in the role of Captain America there, much following up on the after the events of Endgame and Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show. Here he's trying to investigate a plot here that seems to be trying to kill the president, who in this is played by Harrison Ford, who is the new Thunderbolt Ross, who was recently played by William Hurt, who passed away in 2023 there. So he recently passed away there. But yeah, trying to stop this international incident going on of people fighting for animanium. There you see, which I know Sage is very mad about. They introduced animanium in this way. But yeah. So Sage, what are your thoughts on Captain America: Brave New World?
Well, I came out thinking it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Mhm.
And then apparently that's still me being more positive than most of the reviews for this movie. So there's some stuff I think really works here. I really like Anthony Mackie in this movie. I think he comes out of this looking great. I think he's got the charisma. I think he's got the screen presence. He feels like Captain America. He's got the strong moral backbone. I think that any version of Captain America needs to have. I think that's really successful. Some of these action scenes I think are great, and some of them not so much. The one in the middle of the movie, the kind of flight scene, I thought that was great. I thought that's probably one of the most unique looking action set pieces MCU has done in general. But on the flip side, the one kind of that kicks the movie off, I found it to be so like it was kind of reminding me of like the Taken sequels, where it was just there's so many quick cuts. I feel like I was having a hard time seeing things. So that's what I mean when I say mixed bag. It's like it kind of bounces back and forth. And then, if we're talking spoilers, one of the villains here for me, I guess in Ross, not that he's a full-on villain, but a lot of that actually, I was surprised at how much that was working for me, because I feel like I wasn't expecting Harrison Ford to care that much going into this, but I thought he was honestly better than I expected. And based on all the hearsay, and some of that is just hearsay. But hearing about all the reshoots and rewrites, I was worried about how coherent the through line of the film would be. And I actually thought, just from A to B, this does make sense. It doesn't feel like a completely cut up, incoherent mess. It feels like a complete story that happens here. And I think Ross has a fairly good arc. But I think where the movie, does fall apart a little bit is the other villain, which is the leader. And I think it's primarily that if you're going for a spy thriller, espionage kind of story, I feel like I shouldn't be 20 minutes ahead of your super genius villain the whole time. Every time I felt like they sat down to do exposition, or the characters went to have a big conversation about, all right, here's what we've learned, here's the next step in our plan. I kept genuinely being surprised that they didn't already know or pick up on some of the information. That's like, oh, you guys just learned that? Oh, okay, I got to slow myself down here. And to me, that kind of is it's a little bit of a failure at being the genre that it wants to be, because I feel like in an espionage thing, I feel like there should be some more suspense and mystery. And I will say some of that is because they showed the Red Hulk in the trailer so much, and I wonder how I might feel if they kept that a secret, and maybe I wouldn't have picked up on as much. But I think the leader just, to me, really just doesn't feel like a smart character in general. These things he's doing don't feel like they're that effective or thought out, and he gets very emotional when several of his plans get easily thwarted, and I'm just like, this guy's supposed to be like, his whole thing is having a super brain, and I feel like I feel like I'm 20 minutes ahead of him at all times.
Yeah, that's Yeah, and I echo a lot of your points, Sage. I think Anthony Mackie, he's great. If you weren't already sold on him as being Captain America, if you'd seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier, then he fully steps into those shoes, and I think he's a great presence on it. He has the acting chops, the charisma, and also you see that that very caring person that Sam Wilson is. That people forget, I think, that he used to be a counselor for the VA, and you see him use that in his humanity
Oh, your mic. You mute. Yeah.
as Captain America. Harrison Ford, and like you, I'm surprised how much it seems that Harrison Ford cared, because he's one of those actors who is very curmudgeonly. He's very open on, if he doesn't care about a project, he is more than willing to sleepwalk. But especially having watched Shrinking on Apple TV, which is phenomenal and is probably some of the best work he's done in decades. He's great. He fully steps into the role of Thunderbolt Ross, which I thought William Hurt would have. I thought I would have missed William Hurt more, but he brings something else to it, which is a big theme of this movie is, can a figure like Thunderbolt Ross, who was in the early days of the MCU one of the bigger villains. He was, the one of the main villains of the Incredible Hulk, and kind of the political antagonist in Civil War. And he brought that humanity and that potential redemption. But where I felt like Samuel Stearns, I don't know if it's a problem with the reshoots or with the script at all, or the fact that you don't really see him that much for Tim Blake Nelson. I felt like you were saying, is I'm way ahead of the film's supposed super genius villain. It's like, we talk about this a lot, where very often a movie, if they want to portray somebody as being like a super genius, they'll set off plans that, there's a completely improbable amount of circumstances that had to go perfectly right in order for your plan to work. And I felt like it was doing that without actually having the plans work.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the things we couldn't mention in the regular review there, that Tim Blake Nelson. But if you had been following this movie and looking at who was cast and everything like that, I think
I think it was the first announcement they made
that,
too.
that was like the biggest announcement. If you look at IMDb, he's above Harrison Ford in the cast list.
Yeah. So I didn't know. I know people are tricky with that and all that. So I didn't really want to say it. But yeah, so Tim Blake Nelson has returned. He's returned. I don't think they ever say like his name, right? The leader, right? They never say.
They just call him Samuel Stearns.
Yeah.
Which that's something the MCU does a lot with a lot of their villains. They'll refer to them by their actual character name instead of code names, which I like on some level. It makes the world feel more like a real place. It's like they aren't like Batman villains where everybody. Yeah, that's also a thing. I think like the makeup on Tim Blake Nelson, I feel like it should have been way more grotesque, but I did like that they went practical with it instead of doing whatever the hell they did with MODOK back in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah. So
I'll give you that. It's better than
MODOK. You thought it looked a little goofy?
It looked a little too comic booky for the kind of film that this is. That this is trying to harken back to the political thriller side of the MCU stuff, like the Winter Soldier, like Civil War, like even Falcon and the Winter Soldier to an extent.
Yeah. And this is the leader from the comics there, as they see like
He's
that.
like kind of Green Sinestro.
Yeah, kind of. I was gonna think it kind of looks like a little bit like Sinestro there, a little bit like that. So yeah, so this is his look there from the comics.
I mean, I'll be honest about the makeup. I feel like some of the aliens in like 60s Star Trek look like they had more effort put into the costume.
Will Shatner would have 100% tried to fuck the leader in the 60s.
Yeah. I thought he looked much better in the dark, and he was in darkness. I thought that was more effective there than when they actually brought him to the.
Yeah, that was like some menace until the midway point in the movie where they go to Camp Echo 1 and Stearns reveals his like full appearance. It was like, oh, really? That's a choice.
Yeah.
This is a question for both of you.
Mhm.
Did you at all feel like that scene where they go to the compound and they search for whatever secret is inside it, and then they get the exposition dump, part of it
Mm.
off of a computer and part of it from a monologue? Did that feel like they were trying to just kind of recapture the scene where they discover that Hydra's behind everything from Winter Soldier?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like the big issue with this movie is that this is trying very hard to be Sam Wilson's version of the Winter Soldier. But everything that was done, excellently in that movie, from the pacing, from the action set pieces, from the whole character beats of it, I feel like it's done slightly worse in this movie, or without as much effort, or without the kind of emotional payoff that you got in that film. Because I knew full on that, the twist of that movie, that, Bucky's alive and that he is the Winter Soldier, because I read comics, but it still works in that movie on an emotional level.
Yeah. So people know. So his character Tim Blake Nelson, Samuel Stearns, was in the 2008 Incredible Hulk. They teased it all the way back then, and when the blood from Bruce Banner dripped into his open wound on his brain, and then all that, and then people thought, "Oh, what the hell happened to that?" And all these years later, over a decade later, we finally get an answer what has happened to that character. One thing about this movie, people were saying that you have Samuel Stearns, who's from the Incredible Hulk. He's an Incredible Hulk character. You got Thunderbolt Ross, who's an Incredible Hulk character. A lot of what the character of with Ross is about his relationship with his daughter Betty, who's another Incredible Hulk character.
Mhm.
People were like, "Well, damn, you might as well just had made this an Incredible Hulk sequel." This
Well,
doesn't even feel like
it
a Captain America
it
sequel.
it kind of is, and I feel like that's a bit of a problem with Sam Wilson's run as Captain America, is that they didn't really give him his own rogues gallery. So he kind
Mm,
of just had to pick up the slack of Steve Rogers. And that's a problem with Bucky's run as Cap too.
Yep.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know
In
if
a way,
this is.
that's faithful to the comics.
I don't know. I mean, people were mentioning a bunch of different suggestions there, what they could have
Mhm.
done. It seems like, I don't know, they could have maybe brought back Sharon Carter. They seem to set her up as
Mhm.
maybe a major figure
You're
mover.
never seeing her again.
You don't think so? Yeah. I mean, yeah, I liked her character in Falcon and the
Mm.
Winter Soldier as the power broker, so she
I
turned
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
Um,
that's a problem, I think, the with kind of the inception of this movie, from all the pre-production woes that this had, where you of course you had this idea where you wanted to reincorporate elements from the Incredible Hulk, which to this day, even though they've confirmed on stuff like She-Hulk and Shang-Chi that the events of that movie is canon, there's like, okay, yeah, we haven't followed up with this in a very long time, and we don't really know what to do with Sam Wilson as Captain America yet.
mm, okay, yeah. Well, I mean, and then of course I talked about during the review. This movie had a troubled production. I mean, people
Hmm.
talk about tension on set, how this movie was reshot a bunch of times, how there was many different scripts versions of that. Sage, can you tell that when watching the movie, the times they reshot it and
Hmm.
all the different versions of this film kind of cobbled together? Or
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was reading about rewrites, not even just reshoots, but rewrites of the
Hmm.
script happening as recently as like the first week of January. Um, I mean, that's so close to the film's release, and that was like the fifth or sixth time I had read stuff like that, and there's some hearsay to it. I can't 100% confirm everything I read was always
Hmm.
true, but I think, I mean, you get some reshoots that are normal, but
Hmm.
I just don't think it's normal to do it so many times. And I don't think
Hmm.
it's normal to do it so close to the release of the film. That there's definitely a sign of trouble going on there. Some of the stuff that I read that, like the Serpent Society were going to have
Hmm.
bigger roles. Giancarlo Esposito wasn't going to be the only member of it focused on.
Oh.
There are even concept art images like act like that are like a full makeup test of
Hmm.
the leader that does have like a bigger head and kind of a different costume and has a different look.
Yeah, but
So
but that's fairly common.
Well.
That's fairly common with
True.
every MCU movie. Is like
That's true. I just think it was more numerous, I guess, than usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt about it too. Is like, especially towards the third act, where the MCU, I feel like it gets a lot of flack for its very liberal use of green screen in the volume, and you can 100% tell. It looks to the point where characters look like they're cardboard cutouts, or that like they're on the set of a Darman video, and it's frustrating because this is a very proven product and a proven formula. But prior to pre-Avengers Endgame, the movies never felt like that. The movies always felt like, yeah, this is a story that we want to tell with these characters, and every single one of these projects, they are made with the utmost care and attention to detail. And now, I don't know whether it's because Marvel's trying to recapture the secret sauce, which you're never going to do.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. The best you can do is just go back to basics and go back to just make good movies first off.
Yeah. Me and Sage, I mean, we did a retro review for the first Avenger there, and talking about that movie, it's like, hey, this was 14 years ago, and it feels like a movie.
That movie's got fucking sauce compared to a lot of the MCU today.
Yeah. It was kind of like, hey, this was back on the time you didn't have to watch 4 movies and a TV show to understand all what was going on. You could just watch this one thing and be okay. But with Brave New World, Brave New World, you maybe have to have seen a little bit of Eternals, and then you have to have seen Endgame.
Yeah, there's so much canon in the MCU that you can't just jump in anymore. No. It's kind of like if back in 2012 when you were trying to jump into Harry Potter and you're starting with Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Yeah.
It's at that point with Marvel.
Yeah.
It's replicating a problem that the comics see so often, right? Because they get so complicated. There's so many spin-offs and crossovers and events.
Yeah, and
include different things.
And every single comics company, it's like at a certain point they just say, fuck it, reboot everything.
Exactly. And I think that is one of the things that made the MCU great before was it felt like it was escaping that problem of the comics. It was like, we'll do a bunch of these storylines, but we'll simplify them a little bit, but we'll still find ways to tighten them up in different ways. And we'll make it so you don't have to have 8 million storylines to lead up to Infinity War, right? Like imagine if you had the Infinity Gauntlet comic from the 80s exactly as it is in that book, and you had to actually set all those things up. It never would have worked.
Oh, yeah, and that's been a good element of Marvel. It's been taking all of those decades of comics canon and simplifying it for a general audience, people that don't talk about these movies for several hours. I was on it on YouTube and Twitch, but
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's kind of that's become the problem, especially in this latter phase of Marvel, where they reached a point where they have to include canon from a lot of the TV shows. They can't just do any one-off thing unless they reboot everything.
Yeah. When speaking about kind of reshoots and kind of, I think I did feel that watching it. And then all this kind of clunky expository dialogue they try to shove in here. I mean, there's a line where, you have Harrison Ford as Ross, talking to a Secret Service agent. Is have you spoke to Betty, my daughter? It's like, well, I think the Secret Service agent would know that Betty's your daughter. I don't think you have to say that. And then there was that news report.
That Secret Service agent is calling you by your.
Oh, your mic went out again.
God damn it. Yeah, the Secret Service agent is calling you by your first name. I'm pretty sure she knows Betty is your daughter.
Probably.
Yeah.
You mentioned the news report. Are you talking about in the third act when something that is literally happening right now on screen is already a full news article is written about this thing?
Which leads into our I'd say our big cameo this movie, which is Sebastian Stan reprising his role as Bucky.
Yeah.
Which, okay, if he's gonna take the time to show up and give Sam his pep talk, he's not even gonna like offer to help or
Well, I mean, he's got a campaign, man. He's busy, man. He's put, you know what I mean? You know, he's got to make buttons, you know, Bucky buttons, man. He's busy.
He's got to sell his other movie.
Yeah.
He's got to do his buck up campaign.
Yeah. But that news report, so yeah, there was that moment in the movie at the end where the leader, he turns himself in because he's like, okay, this is the only way I can get my plan in motion is if I turn myself in.
Which
and
I feel like if, you know, you were smarter, you would have like accounted for this.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
also the thing that was going to like stress Ross out and force him to transform.
That was already in motion. He didn't need to turn himself in.
Yeah, turning himself in didn't actually do anything.
Yeah. Well, I guess he calculated the probability. He said, well, there's more of a 95% chance if I turn myself in that he's going to be Red Hulk, and there's a less than 20% chance.
Yeah, which
there's
prior
an 88% chance I'll be in the sequel if I do this right now.
Yeah, which prior to that, Stearns makes a big point of killing this character Dennis Dunphy, who's like a United Navy SEAL commander who is in the comics as a character called Demolition Man. And he just murders him to stop him from learning. And he murders him to stop him from telling Sam that the pills were laced with gamma radiation, which he then goes to tell Sam that the pills were laced with gamma radiation and that he was going to turn Ross into Red Hulk. Which, okay, if you were going to do that anyway, why kill him? Was it just to remind the audience that you are the villain?
That's almost like 2016 Suicide Squad levels of circular logic.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't really. Yeah. So when he gets caught, yeah, all of a sudden, like you're right, like immediately it's like they get a whole notifications. All these reporters on their phones, a whole article's been written about what this dude. He gave a quote already. It's like, I mean, news moves fast.
The news was moving faster than Kendrick during the Drake beef.
Yeah, I mean, it just was absolutely insane. Like that didn't make any sense. And then the other news report of like, because this is like a movie trick, you know, if you want to put in dialogue, you know, expository information, you're gonna put it like in a news report. So you got that where the news report goes like, and by the way, and Thunderbolt Ross has a daughter named Betty, and then Betty's the ex-girlfriend of Bruce Banner, and Bruce Banner's the Hulk. And in case you didn't know about all these, you know, it's like, come on, man.
And that's like the previously on for, you know, people that haven't seen the Incredible Hulk in a very long time.
Yeah.
Or have, you know, trouble keeping characters straight. Like my partner, she's not big into Marvel. And I straight up told her, it's like, yeah, you could probably sit at home for this one because you're going to be asking like a whole bunch of questions that by the time I finish explaining, the movie's already going to be over.
Yeah. And they do the same thing with Isaiah Bradley. Like his introduction's horrible, and it's like, hello, I'm Isaiah Bradley, and I was falsely imprisoned for 30 years and tested on, and like it's like, that's the first time.
Who the hell starts a conversation like that? I just said
okay. Yeah. First off, hi.
Yeah.
but this is like a different this is Bradley in a different kind of role that he is on Falcon and the Winter Soldier to an extent. Because in that show, he's like meant to be a somber reminder of the weight that is on Sam Wilson for if he you know takes the shield and doesn't like he's like a reminder of what could go wrong with him as Captain America. And here, Bradley is like much more out of his shell. He's like cool. He's cool and vibing with the young bloods now. He's basically.
Yeah. I mean, he's chilling. I mean, which I thought Carl Lumbly was kind of one of the other things I liked. I think he's able to.
There is no movie that would not be improved by more Carl Lumbly.
Yeah. What did you think about him? So was he another bright spot for you there?
Yeah, I mean, I think his performance is pretty good. Some of the jokes, like, "Oh, I'm old, so I don't know how airdrops work." That'll date this movie a little bit, 10 years down the line. But I think his performance is good. I think there's a lot of like genuine anguish he's able to express. But I wish that, if anything, I almost wish he maybe had a slightly bigger role, just because if you want so much of the story to kind of hinge on, well, I got to do this to make sure this guy gets out and he doesn't suffer the consequences of this thing that is not his fault. I wish he had a bigger presence.
Which by that same logic, if that was going to be the emotional linchpin of this movie, why didn't Sam reach out to Bucky sooner? Because he's like the expert on being mind controlled.
Yeah, Bucky literally brings him to him in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. Bucky knows about him first and is like, "Hey, I know this guy. Let me make this connection and let's explore what we can grow and learn out of this." So yeah, for Bucky to be so absent when that guy's in trouble, even though Bucky was technically, I mean, I don't know if maybe friend is a strong word, but he was at least an acquaintance of Bucky's before Sam ever knew him.
Yeah. What'd you think about the other addition from Falcon and the Winter Soldier in this? Joaquin Torres, played by Danny Ramirez. What'd you think about him?
I didn't dislike him or like him. I felt kind of a take him or leave him. Some of the humor in the movie that didn't work for me was some of in that first action scene, he knocks a bunch of people down and he has to go like, "Ooh yeah, how awesome that was!" Oh, no one's watching, and that's a little bit of the humor in some of the Marvel movies in general lately that I just haven't been as big a fan of. I will say this movie did a lot less of that. That's another thing I did like about this film is I don't think it was like constantly doing one-liners or trying to undercut more serious scenes. I think it did let serious moments be serious more often. Yeah, but I feel like a lot of the moments that did that were coming from the new Falcon character.
Yeah, the comic relief, which Danny Ramirez very much is playing in this, a lot of the humor doesn't really work. But where his character matters is because there's a point where he's taken out of the story because he gets injured during the whole dogfight, which that very end of the movie, which is like this frank conversation about the pressure that Sam feels as Captain America. I feel like that is the best acted moment between the two of them, and getting that inspiration that Torres sees in Wilson. That's going back to a line that I think it's in the conversation with Bucky he has, where it's like, it's like Steve gave them an ideal, you're something to aspire to. Which, okay, aren't those two the same thing?
Yeah, kind of.
Well, it's done. That's what I mean. It's a little bit different. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different there.
Yeah, it's like nobody could Steve Rogers. They can get to Sam Wilson.
Yeah,
it's like that's feasible.
I'm with you though. I do think that is one of the best scenes that character has, and I do think one of the overall best scenes in the movie. And I also think it being maybe the last thing that you see, unless you sit through the post credits, but that's a different conversation. But that being the last thing you see as the movie ends, I think that is one reason why I maybe came away still more positive than other people. Is I think it at least had an impactful final moment.
Yeah. Joaquin Torres, maybe I have to rewatch it again. I think I was thinking about rewatching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I remember liking him in the show. I thought he was decent in there. Here, I felt it was a little too much. Hey, Spike. Hey, let me fly, Spike. I want to go on missions with you, Spike. I mean, like, all right,
Sam.
Yeah, you know what I mean. All right, man, calm down. I get it. His suit. I don't know. Maybe it's just the color, the way that he kind of looks like Scorpion, the Spider-Man villain. The way he puts his helmet on, like it looks a lot like Scorpion there.
I agree.
And he's doing a lot more of you can say the comedic relief for it. So kind of a little bit what Sam did, a little bit with Winter Soldier there. But I feel like they kind of toned down with Sam a little bit of his swagger there, a little bit of his kind of. I mean, he jokes a little bit here, but I feel like they kind of toned it down in the movie quite a bit. Did you feel like that at all?
A little bit. I mean, there's not much in the movie that really calls for that more sense of humor, because this is a fairly dark film. But the movie, when he does tap into that, it gets a laugh out of me. Like when he's fighting the Red Hulk, it was like, yeah, I should have taken that serum. Bucky was full of shit.
Yeah,
I liked that. I thought when Sam was funny, I thought it was funny, and it's maybe hard for me to say, is it that the script had good lines for him to be funny with, or is Anthony Mackie just a funny guy and he could just sell you the dialogue, kind of whatever they give him?
Yeah. I mean, because Anthony Mackie's got good screen presence. He's got good
Mhm,
personality, good screen presence there. So yeah, I think again, I mean, people even if people
mhm.
don't like this movie, they always go back to at least with Anthony
Yeah,
Mackie
and
as Sam
yeah,
Wilson.
and
Pretty good.
yeah, and I'm kind of fairly, fairly cold on this movie. I wish that Anthony Mackie got to lead a more focused Captain America movie. I feel like he's been around in the MCU for a decade
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
been such a stalwart presence in it. And getting to lead the Avengers in this new phase, he deserved like his big coming out part.
Yeah.
And this movie is, eh,
Yeah. Which I don't understand why this was such a tough nut to crack. Because, like you said, you already did it. It was Winter Soldier,
mhm.
so I don't understand what was so difficult about just doing it again. I
And for his character, I think it was stronger in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series too. I feel like
Mhm.
he got more material to work with. Like if that had gotten to be his first big screen
Mhm.
film, I feel like that would have gone over better just with the subject matter and the character struggle that he actually is allowed to go through. I feel like he doesn't have much of an actual arc personally in the film. I
Yeah,
think he's
that
great
is
in it, but I don't think he has
yeah,
an arc.
that's true. And this reminded me a lot in terms of its writing is Captain Marvel, because that's also a movie where the main character doesn't really have a character arc where they grow or change throughout it. Everything that we learn at the beginning and the end of Sam Wilson is stuff that we already know.
Yeah. So do you think it was a mistake for them to do the TV show? Because you said like a lot of the TV show is the arc of
Mm,
him becoming Captain America, which the first Avenger, was all about Steve Rogers. Here is why he deserves to be
mhm,
Captain America. So with them doing a TV show, kind of doing that whole thing, which a lot of people probably didn't see the TV show.
mhm.
Now you're doing a movie. Do you think that they wasted that of like, okay, this is why Sam Wilson deserves to be Captain America.
Mm,
Here's him earning to
well,
be Captain America.
well, there is something to that because not everybody is gonna sign up for Disney Plus. Not everybody is going to see Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which that show's great. You should fucking watch it. But I can kind of see that as the you're asking a general audience to buy Sam Wilson as Captain America to lead the team in the next two Avengers films and be Captain America going forward. I buy it on that level. I just wish they found something more interesting. More they had a more interesting arc for Sam Wilson as Captain.
Yeah. What do you think? So you think making the Disney Plus show was a mistake there?
I don't think it was a mistake to make it. I just think
Mhm,
that maybe that show could have that take exactly what it is. Maybe it could have been a movie instead of a show.
mhm,
I still think that story was. I'm glad they told
mhm.
it, and that's I think one of the best of the Disney Plus Marvel series that they have done. Although a weak villain being besides the point, but I do think it's short enough. And I mean, I feel like I've heard people behind the scenes say, like, oh, yeah, it was originally a film script. And then because Disney Plus needed content, we cut it up a bit to make it
Mhm.
a series.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know how
yeah,
that's 100%
even
sure, but
yeah, we don't know how true that is, but
yeah.
that's kind of a problem with the Marvel Disney Plus shows that none of them are really paced like television. Falcon
Mm,
and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision are kind of the exceptions to that. I feel like
Yeah.
that one is actually fairly structured well for television.
mm,
No, I agree. And I do think it is structured well for television. I just can't help but wonder if you could have formatted it as a
Mm,
film and then released it that way and had it do really well, would this movie perhaps have like an advantage or a
mm,
bigger leg to stand on as well? It's not the first theatrical Sam Wilson Captain America movie. It's the second one, and so you already are used to this character. You already believe him. You already buy it, for that general kind of mainstream audience that maybe isn't watching the TV series. I don't know. I still think I'm glad they told that story though. I'm really glad they did. I think that's a better story than this one is.
yeah.
So
And maybe you would have had, because I think Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie, they got great chemistry. They work well together. Maybe if you do just a movie of that and put them on the big screen, maybe that would also have helped it there. Because when Bucky showed up, when he gives the cameo in the film, that was the only big pop in my theater. Is like some people, oh, it's Bucky. They go probably because that's the only other person people recognized in it. That was the only other familiar person. They're like, oh, hey, look, a familiar face. Okay, I know this dude. Yeah, okay, gotcha. With that one. So we mentioned some characters we like. I want to get into a character which there's some characters in here I feel like they were either forced in here or really didn't feel like they
Mhm,
had too much of a purpose. One of those being the head of the I guess the security force for Harrison Ford
mhm,
here. You have
Mhm.
Sierra Haas in this who plays Ruth Bat Saroff in this.
mhm.
So what did you all think about her character in this there?
Mm, She's a character that is, you know, is meant to put a perspective on Ross's side of the story as far as this conspiracy goes. And I feel like, because there are some very sensitive topics about her because of the nature of the character from the comics. She is a Israeli superhero, which that's that whole conflict is a whole can of worms I'm not nearly educated enough on to get into. But it felt like she was probably a character that got a lot of flack on the cutting room floor.
Hmm. Yeah. And she is tiny, tiny. I mean, that girl is small. I mean, I don't know how tall she got to be like 4'10", maybe like four, like maybe.
Yeah, I had a hard
and,
time believing she was taking anyone in a fight, if I'm being honest.
which they dropped that. Yeah, she was a former Black Widow, which, oh, okay, I can kind of buy it in that, right? Because we've seen Black
I think she was
Widows
the Black
in
Widow
the
the other Black
MCU.
Widows were taking the lunch money from.
Yeah.
She is the runt of the litter.
Yeah, because when you saw Black Widow, that movie, like a lot of those widows, they were kind of like it's almost like they were like Amazonian, like they were kind of like tall and kind of like physically, like yeah, I don't know, but yeah,
I mean, you also got Florence Pugh, who is also not a tall person.
but she's got a little bit more weight to her, and I think she looks more. I mean, it's all the way you shoot things. So
Mm,
you could have shot it in a way where it could look convincing because she has like one action moment in this, which there's a hallway fight, which is just like a recycled hallway fight from like Iron Man
mm.
2 with Black Widow that didn't
Yeah,
all look that good. It's like okay, this is what she can do. What did you think about
yeah.
her character there, Sage?
I think she's a character that in a week or two I'm going to forget was in this movie. I just don't think she contributed much, and I'm sure that is in large part because they were so unsure of how to handle it because of the controversy or potential controversy her inclusion could cause, and so I think they probably did just cut down a lot of what they had planned.
Mm,
But it ends up like it makes me wonder, well, why not just cut her out of the movie entirely if you
mm.
don't
Yeah,
you're
because
not going to have her really
yeah,
do anything.
really, story wise, she doesn't really contribute anything.
It
Yeah,
just feels like a head of security. I mean, even that one holloway action scene that you mentioned
Yeah,
was short, and it was the only action she was involved in the entire film.
yeah. Because a lot of what her role in the movie, so she's when the whole assassination attempt happens with the president, and they're trying to kill these world leaders. Then he's like, okay, he gives her the authority to launch an investigation on who was behind it and what
yeah. It's your investigation. You're not Steve Rogers.
yeah, Harrison Ford, he barks at her literally, and then to give her some orders there, and then he says, okay, so you have two people leading leading
Mm,
different investigations. You got Anthony Mackie with Joaquin Torres, and then you got this woman, and then she's doing her own investigation. So they all kind of meet up in the middle there to with
mm,
they're investigating the clues. So yeah, I think you should have. I mean, you could have just got rid of her. I don't think it really. I mean, I don't think she added all that much to it.
mm.
I'm
Then
trying to
there
pull up her name, but there was the other actress that was like his kind of
Yeah,
personal security.
Zosha Rokermore, who's a Secret Service agent that works with Ross, who apparently has history with Wilson. Which, where the fuck have you been, like, for the
Right.
MCU? There's,
yeah.
I feel like it. I feel like it's a character that should have at least been somewhat included in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because she just kind of comes up out of nowhere and already has a relationship with Wilson.
Yeah,
And they also could have collapsed her and the Ruth character
Mhm,
into one. Maybe you could have sold them having some history better if
mhm,
you kind of combined those two characters.
yeah.
mhm.
But I kind of her scenes. I liked her in the little scenes she was in. I kind of liked. I thought she was fine enough in the little scenes that she was in there. Then you had Giancarlo Esposito, who sidewinder there. Who he's only like the scenes you see in the trailer. That's it. Those are exactly all the scenes in the movie. You get a really accomplished actor like Giancarlo Esposito to do this. I don't know why get him at all. You could have had a damn stuntman come in and get him some lines and had him come in and do that. And then I mean, and especially he's involved in a lot of the action stuff, and he's 66 years old. Why are you getting 66 something year old John Carlos Esposito out there with an AK-47?
And I'm sorry, but is any comic book fan like, oh my, excited at like, oh my God, they're gonna do characters from the
Oh,
Serpent Society.
they're doing the Serpent Society, which is an organization that was so like nothing, that back in Phase 3 that was like the early title for Captain America 3 that everybody kind of just laughed off.
They literally put it there because they wanted people to not be excited about the movie until they reviewed what the real title was.
Yeah. And then Sage mentioned there were some other people that were supposed to be a part of the Serpent Society there that they cut out. So Seth Rollins, WWE wrestler, he was supposed to be part of it. They cut him out. There was also another person they cut out, Ruth Salazar. People might know Ruth Salazar. She was in Alita Battle Angel. She was the lead in that film. The Robert Rodriguez Alita Battle Angel. She was supposed to be a character called Diamondback. I don't know if you know that character.
Yeah. Wait, she was supposed to be Diamondback?
Yeah,
that's Luke Cage's brother from the first season of Luke Cage. That was also Diamondback. Unless there's two Diamondbacks.
A different version of that character.
Yes. Yeah, so let me see.
I mean, kind of like how Marvel, there's like Bullseye and there's Lady Bullseye.
So this one right here. So yeah, Rosa Salazar is going to reportedly play a Diamondback in Captain America Brave. So she was cast and everything, and there's photos of her on the set with the hair, with the purple hair and everything. Let me see. I'll pull up that photo.
Never forget what they took from us.
So I don't know who she was. I don't know the character Diamondbacks. I don't know exactly what she was supposed to do or what she was supposed to exactly do there. But yeah, maybe a love interest for maybe Anthony Mackie. I don't know. So this is her on the set, and then this is Seth Rollins. So yeah,
I guess the Serpent Society was going to play just a bigger role in some version of the film. I mean, again, it seems weird to even include them when. Again, it's like you're not generating like excitement or hype from anybody based on that, and then if they're not really in it anyway, I don't know. It seems to point towards the number of reshoots and kind of the rumors around that maybe being more likely true when you have this many people. I also believe I forget the actor that played him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was a very brief walk-on role, but I believe that the Eli Bradley character, Isaiah's grandson, who is also Patriot in the Young Avengers, I believe he was supposed to have at least, even if it was a small role, a role in this film, and that was also cut entirely.
Yeah, and this movie's, I think, the shortest out of all the Captain America movies. I think clocking in.
This is barely clocking in at 2 hours, which is like short for MCU standards.
Yeah. So. With this movie, also with kind of, it seems like what it's also trying to set up here is the big introduction of Animanium, with the whole, they're all fighting over all these nations.
Yeah, because for everyone that saw and liked the Eternals, there's a giant island popping up in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, which I was kind of wondering, why do they call it Celestial Island? How do they know to call it a celestial? Like, how would they know? Unless
they wouldn't in the MCU, they would in the comics, but
yeah. I mean, I guess celestials, does that have like that word? Is that like a word that could also mean like big or something like that?
Well, I think at the end of Eternals, they implied that they were taking a more active role in the world. So maybe they came out in public and like said
they should have been at that press conference in the beginning.
Yeah. So celestial says it could also mean relating to the sky, heaven, or divinity. So I guess maybe you could say it's a workaround. I guess it's like, okay, say that.
I'm just writing it off as a comic book thing. That well, what the fuck else were they gonna call it? It's like giant ass head island.
Yeah, big.
I like that. That should be on the map.
Big head ass island. Something like that. You could have called it. I don't know, something like that. Yeah. So
the bigger problem with it, I think, is Adamantium having literally no role in the movie other than to just kind of
Except for
ball
like
rolling.
barely like one scene in the opening act where his where Sam's like new vibranium suit gets cut by this random guard, which
Right.
okay, is this gonna play into the plot at all?
Mhm.
No, okay, not coming back to it. Okay, all right, see ya.
What makes you angry, Sage, about them introducing adamantium in this way?
I just find it weird that it's coming out of a celestial. I mean, look,
Mhm.
the MCU can have its own origin for it. That's fine. I think it would have annoyed me less if they'd done something with it or it mattered in the plot. But it feels weird to start it this way, especially
Mhm.
when we know that the X-Men are coming from like different universes anyway. So it's like, why even set up adamantium in the main universe if we're establishing X-Men as being multiverse characters? And then they also, I mean, look, in the comics, adamantium sometimes can win in a fight, sometimes vibranium
Mhm.
can win. Vibranium ultimately I always see as being better because it has
Mhm.
more variety of purposes with its energy
Yeah.
absorption, vibration absorption. But they really go out of the way to be like, yeah, vibranium isn't shit compared to this new adamantium thing. And it's like,
You know what? It's not better, it's just newer.
yeah,
Mm.
it's just newer.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just newer and not in control, not entirely controlled by that one nation in Africa that y'all can't get shit through from.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't need them black people anymore. We got our own version. We don't need y'all no more. Yeah. We're gonna brush our teeth with adamantium now.
Right. You know what? Just in time for the government to remove DEI.
Yeah, we got our own version there. So yeah,
Vibranium's a DEI hire.
man. But yeah, I mean, so there's that. So that seems like this movie's a big introduction for that. Also, they say like, hey, about getting people used to like there is going to be another Avengers film. Who is going to lead the Avengers?
Mhm.
Obviously you
We
need
don't know either.
yeah. I mean, who's even going to be a part of the Avengers team? You know what I mean? Like, who's even going to be a part of that team now? So you guys already said. So you think Sam Wilson, this movie sets up like
Mhm.
him being a good leader of the Avengers? Like he could do that, step
Mhm.
up in that role?
If there's anything this movie does do and actually
Mhm.
does genuinely accomplish,
It,
I think that is one of the things.
yeah, if there is one thing that this movie does well as far as like building more into the MCU lore and building a thread that could be followed up on in another film, that is the one that I think works the best.
Yeah. So I do think that, and I do like how the movie does draw back to Sam Wilson's experience as a counselor. He's very
Mhm.
good at talking to people and helping people and seeing the best in people. Even though I think in here it gets a little damn ridiculous with Thunderbolt Ross of like, well, maybe he's changed, maybe he's a good guy. And it's like, bro, he falsely imprisoned this dude and used him as his own personal think tank just so he could
Yeah,
be
which
president.
I feel
And
like
we only just found that out.
the
Yeah.
movie doesn't touch on that enough, which is
No.
like a very odd thing where this is a better movie would have had this be like Sam Wilson's crisis of faith of being Captain America. It's like the whole ideal of that character is that he is supposed to believe and see the best in people. He's the idealized version of what America would stand for, of what the best of humanity. And he's being asked to work with a guy in Thunderbolt Ross who has been at best very shady in his history in the MCU.
Yeah. But I mean, I know we talked about it a
This
little
new
bit too.
information is the worst thing he's done too. Like imagine knowing he did a bunch of bad things and going like, I'm gonna try and work with him, and then you find out by far the worst thing he's done, and your immediate reaction is, oh, we should still try and work with him. This doesn't change my opinion.
That should have been like a bigger conflict between him and Sam Wilson.
Yeah.
That would have been a character arc.
Mhm.
Yeah. I thought he was a little too like, yeah, forgiving there in that situation. 'Cause I feel like if Steve Rogers was in that situation, I think he would have been like, "Hey man, why'd you falsely imprison this dude?" And like clearly he
Yeah,
got some good beat.
the man broke up the Avengers because they like unjustly interned Wanda Maximoff.
Yeah. Even though she kind of deserved that. She earned
She
that.
did. It's
I
like,
mean,
knowing what we know about Wanda now, it was like, yeah, maybe y'all had the right call.
yeah, but yeah, so I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm not too sure about that, the way they kind of let
Mhm.
that go. And then also with the Ross character, it hinges so much on his relationship with Betty and like I gotta be a good man for my daughter.
All right. It's like, I'm dying, so I want to, turn over a new leaf.
Yeah. Uh, did that hit at all for you? I feel like that didn't hit at all for me because it's like we haven't seen her since '08 Hulk. So it's like this hinging on that relationship being
Mhm,
such a strong point for his character, that just felt like nothing to me. And her character doesn't show up till the very end, and she has a voice
mhm.
cameo at the middle way through the movie. What about you, Say? Did that hit at all for you, that emotional point?
Not really. I wish what they would have done is I've got to be a better man for my
Mhm,
country. And
mhm,
hey, maybe that helps me reconnect with my daughter. I don't know if I deserve
mhm,
it. We'll see how it goes. But I think the point should have been I need to be a better man for my country. And I think
mhm.
that would have worked because you can
And
make
and
that his character
and
without showing everybody in the country and how they feel about it,
and
you know?
and that's the thing that I think was touched on when he invites Sam Wilson to the White House, when he proposes that, restart the Avengers. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's like they have that conversation of, okay, if we disagree about how to handle a situation, especially considering who is the one doing the asking for the Avengers, the guy who, tore it apart.
Mm. Yeah. So I just that didn't really hit for me, that being such an emotional, because like we haven't seen her character since
Mhm,
'08 Hulk. I was like, yeah, I mean, it was good seeing Liv Tyler again. Liv Tyler still looked really good. It was good seeing her again.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
she
has not aged since 2008, which is, kind of nuts.
yeah, she a real life elf. I mean, she really got that elf blood, elf magic working for her. So good for her.
We'll
Um,
find out later that was CG. She was not in the movie
Oh,
at all.
yeah.
oh, they friggin' the
AI
Flash
voice.
Nicolas Cage. They did the Christopher Reeve shit from the Flash movie.
Somebody
Like, did
mentioned
you guys not know Liv Tyler passed away like 10 years ago?
uh, uh, somebody mentioned that they thought that when Anthony Mackie had scenes with Tim Blake Nelson, those felt like they weren't even in the same room together. Did you feel that at all? Like it was kind of green. They kind of composite those things together. Or did you feel like they really were in the
But
same?
come to think of it, I'm not remembering a single shot where they were in the same frame together. Come
They
to
were.
think
Yeah,
of it,
no, I didn't think about it at the time, but now that you're
huh?
saying it, I do think that that's possible.
Okay.
Huh?
Yeah. So I don't know. Some people say it feels like they were just green two people on a green screen maybe, and then they just put the two scenes
No,
together.
we'll like hear in the news that there was some beef between them, so they friggin' The Rock and Vin Diesel it.
Uh, so that was another element there. I didn't really buy, like you said, the stuff with the leader, him being 10 steps ahead. It's like, well, I'm 20 steps ahead of you already. I mean, you
I,
still,
I'm I'm
yeah,
20 steps ahead of you. I've already figured out your plan, which some of that might be on the marketing of the movie, which you put Red Hulk on the poster, which
yeah. Was that
you know,
disappointing for you, Red Hulk? Disappointing?
no, the red no if no if the dogfight scene was like the appetizer, like the amuse bouche for like how good the action was in this movie, that was the main course because for all of its faults, the third act with the Red Hulk and that entire set piece, that kind of hit. That was awesome. It was cool to see a Hulk like figure in the MCU again, especially with the direction that they've taken Bruce Banner as the Hulk.
Yeah. What about you, Sid?
I'm with Nick on this one. I thought it was actually a really good action scene, even if all of the story elements around it
Mhm.
weren't necessarily clicking. Just the action itself, I thought was really strong. Him tearing up the White House and hitting helicopters with an American
It's
flag,
like,
just some of the
okay,
imagery of
okay,
it, I
first
thought was
off,
really cool.
yeah, this is the world where the Hulk is a thing, and there's two Hulks now with
Yeah,
She-Hulk. So I feel like y'all should have been better prepared for a Hulk-like figure to tear through the White
they
House.
really they
This
were in
is
the first
this
Hulk
is a
movie
world,
with the
this is a
sound
world
wave
where
minions.
this is a world where half of the population has vanished. There's been like an alien invasion in New York at least 3 different times now,
Yeah.
and
And that's
and
something that
guns
bugs
and
me about the
guns and
audience.
drones are the best you can do for a Hulk.
Right. Well, that's something that bugged me about the reporters and the audience of people that were there when it was happening because I feel like a lot of those people are like, you've seen how many Hulk situations and all these things, and you're just like, let's get our pistols and the people with no weapons, we're just gonna stand here for a while.
Which that was, and I just rewatched it for Christmas with the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. That little comedic beat where the Bowie is like flying down into Los Angeles, so you get a shot of like a bystander just shaking in their boots, terrified of an alien invasion again. I feel like that's a more natural reaction to some of the craziness that happens in Marvel that doesn't really feel real in this.
Yeah.
And if we're considering the very first Hulk film, the military had giant like supersonic sound wave cannons just built for the Hulk then, and the Hulkbuster existed as recently as like 2015 in this universe. So that is a 10-year-old invention. So like there's Hulk like anti-Hulk weapons that have been established.
There are contingencies for the Hulk.
Yeah.
And this is the White House. You don't have anything for it.
You're telling me that of all the characters that could have shown up in this movie, there's not a War Machine Hulkbuster with Rhodey in the Air Force on speed dial responding to something at the White House?
Or like anything related to, you know, Samuel Stearns. Not one call to Bruce Banner, who, you know, might have some expertise in that area.
Yeah.
Also, just saying, if the news article could go up that fast, Bruce Banner could get there that fast.
they could have paid Mark Ruffalo for like a talking head piece.
Yeah.
I thought he was maybe good. I mean, as much as they bring up Bruce Banner and his character, I thought he was maybe going to have a cameo in here somewhere. You know, like someone maybe y'all know the one that's testing the pills that Ross is taking. You could have given him the pills and he tested them or something.
Well, if you want to have like so many connections to the Hulk movie that people might not remember, maybe the main character from that movie, that's the one thing they're familiar with, might be a good bridge to make that more palatable.
You know what? We're not Marvel Studios. We can talk all day about what we wish this movie would have done, but we gotta take the movie for as it is, and that movie it's just okay.
Yeah,
it's just okay. There's elements of this movie that I think are done really well with Sam Wilson, you know, being Captain America, Harrison Ford's performance, setting up that Anthony Mackie's Captain America is going to be the leader of the Avengers one day. All of that is done really well. The action with the Red Hulk is awesome. The set piece with on Celestial Island, I feel like that's probably the most unique in the MCU, at least post Endgame and post something like Shang-Chi. Where this movie's faults are, a lot of it, I feel like there's, from the pre-production where they didn't really know what direction to take this, where you already had Sam Wilson's arc of, accepting that he is the right man for Captain America. So you don't really know what to do with him anymore.
Mm. So you think you think it deserves 50%, or is that 50% right
now? I feel like I'd say 50%, is probably a little harsh considering, the movie we got is like, this isn't any worse than, this is a much better movie than a lot of the worst comic book movies we've gotten in the last couple of years. Like, I take this over Kraven the Hunter any day of the week. I take this over Madam Web. I take this over, Thor: Love and Thunder. I feel like this is a better made movie than all of those. But for Captain America, especially, how solid that particular franchise has been for Marvel, this is, probably the weakest entry in that.
So this was part of Phase 5. Mm-hmm. So these are the movies that are part of Phase 5, and I think Fantastic Four is going to start Phase 6. Mm-hmm. So you got Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumanium. I think it's better than that.
It's a much better movie than that.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3, no, I don't think it's better than that.
Hell no.
The Marvels,
one of the few great ones.
Yeah. The Marvels, I think it's better than the Marvels.
I like the Marvels.
Deadpool and Wolverine, I don't think it's better than Deadpool and Wolverine. At least with this movie, there's no multiverse. Hey, there's no multiverse.
Yeah. Oh, until the post credit. Which okay, that was definitely a reshoot. I can see the edges of the green screen where they had Tim Blake Nelson in it. That was the obligatory. It's like, okay, we got to set up something for the post credit stinger. It's like, okay, let's just have the multiverse be an ominous drop. which is by this point in Marvel is we already know that's a thing.
Then
also, if the leader couldn't figure out these basic just
He's
real
like,
world political plans, how's he?
It's like,
coming up with
yeah,
all
this
the
guy
plans?
just realized that.
and then the final film is Thunderbolts. You think what's the chances Thunderbolts is going to be better or worse or about the same?
I'm genuinely dreading that one.
I'm more excited for Thunderbolts and for Fantastic Four because of the people behind the camera. People like Lee Sung Jin and Jake Schreier, who directed that movie. They directed and showrun that show Beef on Netflix, which is what got them the gig. And I'm curious to see what they do with that. I like what I'm seeing from Fantastic Four First Steps, because those feel like, even if they are, because any Marvel movie, of course, it's a corporate product. And prior to Phase 5, the movies never felt like that, and they have more than ever. Those, at least with the marketing, those feels like, okay, this is going to be an interesting, well-made film.
Okay, yeah. So you said you're dreading Thunderbolts there, Sage? You said
I guess I wasn't super familiar with the creative talent behind the camera, and that could maybe change my perspective on it a little bit too, to learn more about that. But mostly in terms of like the lineup of the characters included in the film, it partially feels like a bit of a Black Widow sequel to me, which that to me is my least favorite of the theatrically released MCU films overall. Like, I think this Captain America movie way better than that. And I don't know, like, I guess I don't want to say who they're fighting because the trailers are being coy, and I don't want to spoil that just in case it's a surprise. But
yeah,
that's
it's a case of really, this is the team you're sending after that.
Yeah, it feels a little like it kind of feels a little like the first Suicide Squad movie to me.
Yeah, and to an extent, even the James Gunn Suicide Squad, where they're going up against Starro, and there is that in the back of your mind. It's like, really, these are the guys you're sending after that. But in that film, they kind of justify it as like, yeah, they were never meant to fight Starro. They were just meant to destroy the records.
Right. So that makes sense. And again, maybe I see the full movie. Maybe they do something like that, and there's totally like a good reason for why it is the way it is. I don't know.
I'm excited because Black Widow, I think it's a movie that it's kind of in that high D low C tier for Marvel, where there's a lot of that movie that doesn't work, but what does is Florence Pugh and David Harbour as those characters, and seeing more of them is something I'm excited for.
Yeah. So, what will be your rating there, Nick? Did you for Captain America: Brave New World there?
Brave New World, I feel like this is a movie I really wanted to like, off the strength of the previous Captain America movies, off of how much I loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And seeing Anthony Mackie step into the shoes as Cap and have his own story is something that I was really excited for. And then I heard about all the reshoots this movie went through, all the controversy, and then seeing the movie, it feels like, okay, this is a film where you really didn't know what to do with your main character, and it kind of feels like it's cobbled together of, okay, we want to do more with the characters from the Incredible Hulk. We want to set up the X-Men potentially coming into this with Adamantium. We want to introduce a new Hulk figure. And while the movie is as compared to a lot of the other projects where there is infamous stories of reshoots and rewrites and a lot of production trouble, this is at least is a very competently made and watchable film. But I feel like, especially in terms of the MCU, which is a franchise that I was there day one with Iron Man when it came out. I've been there opening weekend, every single one of the movies whenever I could, and been excited, had my Marvel shirt on, was hyped. And now, especially with the last couple of theatrical release projects, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a thing. It feels more like work to get hyped for an MCU movie than it did before. And for that, I'd say This is still a very well-made movie. I liked what this movie does well. It does really well, and everything that is kind of a shortcoming of this movie, it's still passable. It's like even if I'm not crazy about the action set pieces or the writing, it's still passable for a viewing audience. But would I ever want to watch this movie again outside of a completionist binge for like the next Avengers movie? Probably not. I'd say this is like a low streaming just for what I liked about this movie with the action set pieces, with Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie.
What about you, Sage? Rating, final thought.
I pretty much agree with everything Nick just said. I was also one of those people that, when I was like 4 years old, I'd run around my sister's soccer games in a Spider-Man costume. Like, that is how much I love Marvel. I was right there, day one of Iron Man's release, freaked out about the post-credit scene. Can't believe they're trying this. I wonder how it's going to go.
It's like, it's like seeing the news online. It's like Captain America, the first Avenger. You're like, okay, there's no fucking way they're going to make an Avengers movie. There's no way. There's no way. Oh my God. And it's good.
And it's actually good. And I was there. Every, not just opening weekend, but opening day, I feel like I didn't miss one of these movies. And post Endgame, I still had a lot of excitement. I was like, well, there are still so many things they could do, and there are still so many characters. And I'm excited they could get even weirder with it and start pulling out more obscure things. And I think the last one that I went to see opening day was Thor: Love and Thunder, and just after a certain number of them in a row, it just kind of finally broke me. And I saw this one because a friend of mine, I saw it opening day because a friend of mine wanted to go see it, and I was like, well, what the hell, why not? And I feel like going into low expectations, I was pleasantly surprised even by how much I did enjoy it, because I do think it is a fun popcorn movie. I do think it's a bit of a turn your brain off film, though.
Yeah, if this is kind of like the Diet Winter Soldier, where that movie is like, that movie is a great movie on its own outside of all the comic book stuff. And this one, it's like, this is like this feels like Winter Soldier from Wish.com a little bit.
Totally. And so, all that being said, did I regret going to see it right away? No, not at all. Like Nick, am I super excited to watch it again? Not really that either. If I rewatched it for another film, maybe, but at the end of the day, it's almost like the sense of obligation that I might feel going to like a distant relative's funeral that I didn't know that well.
Oh my God. So, Jesus, you make it sound like this movie was awful.
The thing is, low stream it, given that the exact same score as you. I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Just low stream it.
Yeah. I gave it a little stream as well, and there's a post-credit scene at the end, as Nick mentioned, where it's nothing. It's like, ooh, something's coming. Ooh.
Which, doesn't even make sense for him to be talking about it.
Yeah, which of all the people to like talk about it, it was like the leader who was supposedly this super genius that everybody had his plan figured out like hours before he did.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if he was like fully the comic book version and he was like in a spaceship sometimes and going into like doing all these things. That'd be one thing. But especially when you try and make this character way more grounded for this political thriller vibe. Then he's like all of a sudden, hey, did you know about the multiverse, man?
Really, that's
totally
really you're the character that's dropping this threat. Huh. All right, that's a choice.
People say it's the worst one. I don't think it's the worst post-credit scene. I think the Eternal one was worse.
The Eternals one, as far as things that is not gonna pay off at all.
Yeah, that one is
like the freaking Harry Styles as Thanos' brother, which I feel like that was a decision that was made before anyone saw Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah. I think
Don't worry, darling. We're not going to follow that.
Freaking he was supposed to be like in Nosferatu, and like the weekend after that movie came out, he was replaced by Nicholas Hoult.
Wow.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, that is like there's bullet dodge and then there's atomic bomb dodged.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the
That's like
Eternals
the
one is
movie Missile
worse.
Crisis level of version.
But yeah, I think that one's worse, and I think Love and Thunder is worse. I think that one's worse too.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like for me, the floor of like good MCU movies is like the first Doctor Strange. Like if it doesn't match at least that quality, then whatever.
Yeah. So that was our thoughts. Spoiler review for Captain America: Brave New World. Low stream it's all around.